Hello and welcome to another deep dive. It is January 18th, 2026.
Hello.
And if you've been paying any attention to the cultural temperature lately, things feel tense.
Oh, definitely.
We are living through a massive shift in the media landscape, and today we are looking at a specific event that really feels like the bellwether for the end of an era.
It really does. I mean, we are looking at the end of a television dynasty.
Which is just wild to say out loud. But we aren't just looking at a cancellation, we are looking at the man himself.
Right.
We have a whole stack of sources here. Biographies, long-form interviews, even court filings from recent lawsuits, and of course, decades of comedy archives.
A lot to get through.
Our mission is to figure out who Stephen Colbert actually is. Because, he's been on our screens for 30 years, but he spent most of that time wearing a mask.
And to understand the unmasking and this whole impending departure, we really have to look at the headlines first.
Right. So, let's set the stage. The news broke back in July of last year. That's July 2025. CBS dropped the bombshell that The Late Show with Stephen Colbert isn't just changing hosts.
No.
It is ending. The entire franchise is being retired in May 2026 after 33 years on the air.
A massive, massive decision. And the official corporate line was pretty standard fare.
It was. Production costs are too high. Linear TV ad revenue is cratering.
And to be fair, those things are objectively true. I mean, late-night TV is incredibly expensive to produce.
Of course. But that doesn't really explain the timing. You don't just kill a cash cow franchise unless the milk has turned sour or, someone is forcing your hand.
And all the reporting around this suggests it was the latter.
Exactly.
To understand this, you have to look at the legal landscape of late 2024 and into 2025. Do you remember the lawsuit Donald Trump filed against CBS?
The one about the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris.
Correct. He alleged deceptive editing and sued for billions. Now, fast forward to mid-2025. Paramount Global, the parent company of CBS, is trying to push through a merger.
With Skydance Media.
With Skydance. They need federal approval. They need the FCC to sign off on license transfers.
And Trump is just looming over all of this.
Precisely. The reporting, and it's pretty solid reporting, indicates that a settlement was reached to kind of clear the way for that merger.
And what, 2 weeks after that settlement framework is discussed?
2 weeks, Colbert Show gets the axe.
That is, it's not subtle, is it?
It is not subtle at all, and the reactions really confirm the polarization of it all.
Oh, yeah.
You had Jimmy Kimmel on one side calling the network's reasoning nonsensical.
Oh.
And then you have Trump explicitly cheering it on, saying he absolutely loves that the show is gone.
So Colbert is essentially a casualty of this collision between corporate consolidation and, frankly, political vengeance.
That's a good way to put it.
But that's the ending. And to understand why he became such a target and why his comedy mattered so much, we have to go back.
Way back.
We have to go back to the beginning. And the beginning of Stephen Colbert isn't funny at all. It's tragic.
He is the definition of tragedy.
We're talking about a guy born in D.C., but he was raised in Charleston, South Carolina, youngest of 11 kids.
11. Can you just imagine the chaotic energy in that house?
I can't. A very, very Catholic family. Dad is James Colbert. He's a doctor, an immunologist, and a medical school dean. Mom's a homemaker. And by all accounts, it was a loud, happy, argumentative house full of really smart people.
Until September 11, 1974.
And Stephen is 10 years old.
His father, James, and his two brothers who were nearest to him in age, Paul and Peter, are on a flight to Connecticut. The boys were supposed to enroll in a prep school there.
And the plane, it was Eastern Airlines Flight 212. It crashes on approach to Charlotte.
It did.
And his father and both brothers.
They died in an instant.
I cannot imagine the vacuum that leaves in a 10-year-old's life. You lose your father and your two closest siblings all at once.
It's unimaginable.
This source material has this quote from him where he says, "Nothing made any sense after my father and my brothers died. I kind of just shut off."
That shutting off it's really the key to his entire psychological profile. Before the crash, he was just a kid. After the crash, he became an observer.
He detached.
Completely. He retreated into books.
And this is where the whole sci-fi obsession starts, right?
It is. He just consumed science fiction and fantasy like it was oxygen, specifically Tolkien. He says he read a sci-fi novel a day for years.
A day.
It wasn't just a hobby for him, it was an escape pod. He went to Middle-earth because the real world was just too painful to inhabit.
But what distinguishes Colbert from just anyone who suffers a tragedy is how he metabolized it later in life.
Yeah.
There's that interview he did with Anderson Cooper, I think it was back in 2019, that just went viral.
Oh, it's a stunning piece of television. People still share clips of it all the time.
He talks about the acceptance of suffering. And he says, and this is the line, "I love the thing that I most wish had not happened."
It's a very difficult concept for modern secular culture to grasp. It sounds almost masochistic.
It really does.
But it's a deeply Catholic idea. It's this philosophy that your suffering is what connects you to humanity. If you reject your suffering, you are rejecting the human experience. You're distancing yourself from everyone else who hurts.
So instead of being bitter, he chose to be grateful for the depth of feeling that the tragedy ultimately gave him.
Exactly. He viewed his grief as a bridge to other people. And that empathy, that ability to connect with the darkness, is actually what makes his comedy so sharp. He's not afraid of the dark because he's lived in it.
That tragedy also had these other, physical consequences for him. He wanted to be a marine biologist.
Right, that was the dream.
Yeah.
But he had a severely perforated eardrum that required surgery right around that same time.
And it left him completely deaf in his right ear.
Which meant no scuba diving.
So the career was over before it even started.
Pretty much. And there's another physical trait that came out of his childhood that I find just fascinating. His voice.
The non-regional diction.
Yes. If you listen to him, he sounds like he's from nowhere. Or maybe more accurately, he sounds like a TV anchor. But he grew up in South Carolina.
You should have a drawl. A big one.
He consciously scrubbed it. As a kid, he noticed that on television, anyone with a Southern accent was either the villain or the idiot. The dumb hick stereotype.
And he was intellectual, he was proud, he didn't want to be perceived that way.
So he mimics the news anchors. He specifically copied a guy named John Chancellor.
Which is just incredibly ironic. He trained himself to sound like an authoritative news anchor when he was 12 years old, just to avoid being stereotyped.
And then 30 years later, he becomes famous by playing a parody of an authoritative news anchor.
It's almost like he was method acting for the role of a lifetime before he even knew that comedy was a career.
It really is.
So let's look at that career path. He goes to College Hampton, Sydney first, studying philosophy, which that tracks with the grief stuff.
It does.
And then he transfers to Northwestern for
Right.
theater. And he's a serious actor, right? He's not the class clown.
Not at all. He took himself very, very seriously. In fact, here is a nugget that I just love. In 1986, he was offered an internship at Late Night with David Letterman.
The actual show he would eventually host.
The very one. And he turned it down
Why?
because it was unpaid. He needed the money.
That's just poetic. So he ends up in Chicago. He's working at Second City, the legendary improv theater. But he's not on stage initially.
No, he's answering the phones.
But the job came with free classes. And this is where he meets the people who would, define his life.
Amy Sedaris and Paul Dinello.
The holy trinity of weird alternative comedy. But the notes say they didn't like him at first.
Oh, they hated him. Dinello thought Colbert was this uptight, preppy snob. And Colbert thought Dinello was, and this is a quote, an illiterate thug.
It sounds like the plot of a buddy comedy.
It really does. But they realized that despite the surface differences, they shared a sensibility. They all liked the dark, uncomfortable stuff. And they were all just incredibly talented.
I mean, Colbert was literally the understudy for Steve Carell at Second City.
The depth of the bench in Chicago at that time is just insane.
It's ridiculous. And this crew, Colbert, Sedaris, Dinello, Carell, they eventually moved to New York. They get hired on the Dina Carvey show in 1996.
A show that is famous for crashing and burning.
Spectacularly. It was on primetime ABC, and I think it opened with a sketch of Bill Clinton breastfeeding puppies.
It did.
Kamikaze satire.
ABC canceled it almost immediately. But that failure forged them. It gave us the ambiguously gay duo where Colbert voiced Ace.
A classic.
And it led directly to Strangers with Candy.
I want to spend a moment on Strangers with Candy because I feel like this is where the Colbert character is actually born. He plays Chuck Noblet.
Yes, a history teacher.
And how would you describe Chuck Noblet?
He is the prototype. Colbert himself described him as a poorly informed, high-status idiot.
High-status idiot. That's the key phrase.
It is. It's not just that he's dumb. It's that he has power, and he is absolutely certain that he is right. He's authoritative and completely wrong.
In Strangers with Candy, he's also a closeted gay man who thinks he's fooling everyone. Right?
Oh, yeah, even though he's having a very obvious affair with another teacher.
That delusion, that gap between who he thinks he is and who he actually is, that is the comedy goldmine.
Exactly. And he took that exact energy to The Daily Show.
So he joins The Daily Show in 1997. This is the Craig Kilborn era initially.
Right, he was just a correspondent. But when Jon Stewart took over in 1999 and the show became sharply political, Colbert's character found its true purpose.
He modeled it on the cable news pundits of the time.
Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, yeah, definitely O'Reilly.
Ron Hannity.
Yeah.
I guess guys who shouted. Colbert realized that if he played the character as totally willfully ignorant, he could expose the absurdity of the real pundits.
I remember those field pieces so well. He would sit down with a scientist or, some expert and just bulldoze them with nonsense.
And the expert would just look confused, like, why is this man not listening to facts?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the joke. The joke wasn't on the expert. The joke was on Colbert's refusal to accept reality.
I think my favorite recurring bit from that whole era was Even Steven.
Oh, with Steve Carell. Just perfect.
There's two guys named Steve shouting past each other.
It was pure satirical rage. It highlighted how televised debates so often generate all this heat, but absolutely no light. They weren't listening to each other. They were just waiting for their turn to speak.
Which leads us, finally, to the masterpiece. 2005, The Colbert Report.
The spin-off, a show entirely dedicated to that persona.
And in the very first episode, he coins a word that defines the entire Bush era.
Truthiness.
We use this word now like it's always been around, but we have to unpack it as he defined it then. What is truthiness?
He defined it as believing something based on intuition or gut rather than facts. It's the idea that it doesn't matter what the data says, it matters what I feel is true.
I feel it in my gut.
Right. He said, the gut has more nerve endings than the brain. It was a direct critique of the anti-intellectualism of that time. The Iraq War justification, climate change denial, it was all truthiness.
And the American Dialect Society named it Word of the Year. He wasn't just making a joke, he was diagnosing a societal condition.
And if you look around in 2026, that condition has metastasized. It was a warning.
Speaking of warnings, we absolutely have to talk about the 2006 White House Correspondents' Dinner. Because for me, this is the moment Stephen Colbert became dangerous.
This is the cultural primary.
He is hired to perform for the president. George W. Bush is sitting 10 feet away, and Colbert goes up there in character as a right-wing blowhard.
And he destroys him. He stands there and says, I believe in this president because he stands on things. He stands on rubble. He stands on aircraft carriers. And that sends a strong message that no matter what happens to America, she will always have the most powerful photo ops in the world.
The audacity. To say that to his face.
It was a complete high-wire act. And
oh, the room hated it. You can hear it on the tape.
Dead silence. You could hear the silverware clinking. And the press corps hated it, too, because he insulted them. He told them they were just stenographers who were too scared to ask real questions.
But the internet loved it.
It was one of the first massive viral political videos. It proved that there was a huge audience for this kind of confrontational satire. It showed that he wasn't just a clown, he was a critic.
And he really started to blur the lines between performance and reality. He didn't just mock the system, he actually entered it.
The Super PAC saga.
In 2011, that was just an incredible piece of performance art.
It was a civics lesson disguised as a prank. After the Citizens United ruling allowed unlimited corporate spending in elections, Colbert basically said, okay, I'm going to do that.
So he started Colbert PAC. He raised real money.
Over $1 million. And he used it to run these absurd ads. But the genius part was when he decided to explore a presidential run in South Carolina.
Right, because if you are a candidate, you can't coordinate with your super PAC. It's illegal.
So on his show, he brings out Jon Stewart, and he signs a piece of paper legally transferring control of the super pay to Jon. And they rename it the Definitely Not Coordinating with Stephen Colbert Super PAC.
And then they just kept doing exactly what they were doing before.
Exactly. He showed millions of viewers that the rule against coordination was a complete joke. You could just hand the money to your buddy. He exposed the loophole by jumping right through it.
He even testified before Congress in character.
He did, in 2010, on migrant labor. And this is a really key moment because for most of the testimony, he's doing the high-status idiot bit. But then, at the very end, he breaks.
He drops the mask.
He does. He speaks sincerely about migrant workers. He quotes the Bible, calling them the least of my brothers. He says, I like talking about people who don't have any power.
That's the acceptance of suffering guy peeking through again.
It is. It showed that underneath all the layers of irony, there was a deeply moral center.
Which brings us to 2015, the biggest pivot of his career. David Letterman retires. CBS hires Colbert.
But they don't hire the character. They hire the real Stephen Colbert.
And that was a massive gamble. People were genuinely worried. Could he be funny without the mask? Was he interesting enough as just a guy?
It was a real question. And the beginning was, it was a little rocky.
It was. He tried to be a traditional host for a minute there. Celebrity interviews, gentle skits.
But then 2016 happened. Trump happened. And the show changed.
It became the resistance headquarters.
It really did. Colbert stopped trying to be broad and started being sharp. He leaned into his political instincts, and the ratings just exploded. He beat Jimmy Fallon because people didn't want to play games. They wanted catharsis.
The notes mention that while he is perceived as this lefty figure, he frames it a bit differently. He says he's talking about a government and extremists.
Right. He argues that he's not a partisan hack.
Yeah.
He's just reacting to norms being shattered. Although, I mean, if we look at his actual positions, he's pretty clearly a Democrat.
Yeah, let's be real about the politics here. The sources say he identifies as a Democrat. He supports Medicare for all.
Calls it a sensible fix to Obamacare.
He's pro-choice, views it as a woman's legal right. So he's a standard liberal Democrat in many ways.
In many ways, yes. But he has surprised people. He's been very critical of the Biden administration at times.
That's true. After that disaster of a debate in June 2024, Colbert was one of the first major voices to suggest Biden should drop out.
A huge deal at the time. And he's been critical of Israel's actions in Gaza, specifically regarding the World Central Kitchen attack.
Right, and he defended the right of college students to protest, which put him at odds with some of the more centrist voices, even in his own network.
And on the flip side, the Russians hate him. He was permanently banned from entering Russia in 2023 for spreading Russophobic attitudes.
I feel like getting banned from Russia is a badge of honor for a comedian.
It's practically a Lifetime Achievement Award.
So he's been this dominant voice for a decade. But now, in 2026, the walls are closing in. We have the financial pressure, the political pressure from the Trump settlement. It just feels like the era of the broad appeal late night show is dead.
I think it is. We are too fractured. You can't make a show for everyone anymore because we don't live in the same reality.
But Colbert didn't go down without a fight. Even looking at his post-cancellation plans, he's staying active.
He is. He's an executive producer on that After Midnight show, though that ended after 2 seasons.
But he's also producing the Chronicles of Amber adaptation.
Another fantasy series, back to his roots.
And he's dipping his toe into New Jersey politics.
Endorsed Mikey Sherrill for governor in November 2025. And he did a guest spot on Elspeth, reuniting with Amy Sedaris, so he's not retreating to the public square.
Before we wrap up with the legacy, I want to talk about the man himself again, because the real Stephen Colbert is, well, he's kind of a weirdo, in the best way.
He is a man of contradictions.
Let's talk about the faith aspect. We mentioned the tragedy, but his relationship with the church is so complex. He's a Sunday school teacher, he's an ordained minister.
But he's not a traditional conservative Catholic, not at all. He's critical of the church's stance on homosexuality. He's pro-choice. But he loves the ritual. He loves the intellectual tradition. He actually met Pope Francis in 2024.
He was an atheist for a while in college, wasn't he?
He was. He lost his faith after the crash, which is completely understandable. But the story of how he got it back is great.
He was in Chicago.
Freezing cold, anxious about his career, and someone handed him a Gideon Bible.
And he opened it to a specific verse.
Matthew 6.27. Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?
And that just hit him.
It broke the fever. He realized that his anxiety was a form of arrogance, this attempt to control things he couldn't control.
Speaking of anxiety, he's been very open about his mental health. He took Xanax for a while when he was at Second City.
He did. It helped with the panic attacks, but then he stopped.
Why?
Because he said he couldn't hear the gears anymore. The medication muffled his creativity. He realized that the anxiety and the creativity were coming from the same place.
I remember this line. He described himself as a bell that's been rung so hard I can still feel myself vibrating.
That is such a powerful image. The vibration is the art.
Right. He decided to suffer through the vibration because that's what made him funny.
It's incredible.
We also have to mention his family, because in a world of showbiz divorces, he's been rock solid.
Evelyn, Evie McGee, their meet cute is straight out of a movie.
They met at a festival in Charleston, right?
Yes. He saw her and thought it was love at first sight. They started talking, and within moments they realized they grew up in the same area and had mutual friends.
It's very grounding for him, I think. She's not from the Hollywood world. She's from his home world.
And we can't ignore the nerd cred. I mean, he is genuinely obsessed with Tolkien. This isn't a bit.
Oh, no. He can read Elvish.
He has had legendary nerd-offs with Peter Jackson. about Tolkien lore.
He had a cameo in The Hobbit.
He played a Lake Town spy. He brought his whole family to the set. It was the ultimate fanboy moment.
And just to show how eclectic he is, he owns a Richard Nixon campaign poster from 1972.
He does.
Why? I mean, Nixon is like the antithesis of everything Colbert stands for.
Because he admires Nixon's domestic policies. The EPA, opening China. He appreciates the complexity that a man can do selfish evil like Watergate, but also do progressive good. He refuses to see people as cartoons.
Which is the opposite of truthiness, really. It's nuance.
It is, exactly.
So as we look at the legacy he leaves behind, it's not just jokes. The Colbert bump was a real thing.
Oh, statistically proven. If you went on his show, your book sales spiked, your polling numbers went up. He could move the needle.
And the science community just loved him.
They named everything after him. There's a trapdoor spider, a Tosticus Stephen Colberti.
A trapdoor spider? That feels appropriate. It hides and then jumps out at you.
There's a diving beetle, stonefly. But the best one is the treadmill.
The NASA story. We have to tell the NASA story.
Okay, so NASA holds an online poll to name a new module for the International Space Station.
A very bad idea.
A terrible idea. Colbert tells his audience to write in his name, and naturally, he wins by a landslide.
But NASA couldn't just name a module Colbert.
They refused. It would be too undignified, but they compromised. They named the treadmill on the station the COLBERT.
What does that stand for again?
Combined Operational Load-Bearing External Resistance Treadmill.
That is the most tortured acronym I have ever heard in my life.
It's magnificent, and it's the only piece of NASA equipment named after a living human.
And of course, the ice cream. Can't forget the ice cream.
Ben & Jerry's Americone Dream. It's actually delicious. And he donates all the proceeds to charity. He's raised millions of dollars through ice cream.
So here we are. The show ends in May. The voice that defined political satire for the Bush years, the Obama years, the Trump years, and the Biden years is going silent.
It feels like the end of a specific type of cultural consensus. Colbert tried to use logic, shame, and satire to make the system better.
And looking at 2026, looking at the polarization, the truthiness that has completely taken over, you have to ask, did it work?
That is the hard question. If his goal was to defeat truthiness, well, he failed. Truthiness won. Facts are more optional today than they were in 2005.
But maybe that wasn't the goal?
Maybe not. Maybe the goal was just to keep us sane, to let us know we weren't crazy for seeing what we were seeing.
A life raft.
Exactly.
So here is a provocative thought to leave you with. Stephen Colbert described himself as that bell that's been rung so hard I can still feel myself vibrating. As he steps away, consider this. In a world where reality is increasingly chosen rather than observed, did Colbert's satire actually fix anything? Or did it just provide a sophisticated comfort zone for the people who are already agreeing with him? Did we laugh to change the world, or did we just laugh to avoid having to change it?
That's a question that will definitely stick with you.
It certainly will. If you want to distract yourself while you mull that over, check the deep dive notes. We've got the breakdown of that insane NASA acronym and the full story of his Chronicles of Amber adaptation that he's producing next.
Always looking for the next fantasy world.
Always. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Goodbye.